For the past 10 months, we've been living in a climate no one could ever have imagined due to an unforeseen global pandemic. It has been reported that 24% of the UK's workforce, 7.6 million jobs, are at risk because of COVID-related lockdowns and requirements. Much of the attention, though, has been on sectors such as hospitality, aviation, and construction. One, however, has been hit just as badly, but hasn't had the same public support: the arts. With many venues closed since March, live music has come to a complete halt, along with live theatre shows and dance showcases. Recently though, we've started to see more and more mainstream artists performing on live streams, from Stormzy headlining at McDonald's Live, whilst others performing on socially distanced live talk shows. This got me thinking, what about the next generation of creatives? How are the musicians who were just set to make it out of open mic nights doing? How have young aspiring actors and actresses ready to break a leg on a bigger stage coped? How do they find hope and guidance through these uncertain times? I've gone to speak to this exact group and find out. One thing before we do dive into this world is always remember that come rain or shine, the arts will live
on. The music industry is not dying. It has just been temporarily halted.
I think for our generation and probably in our time, this is the biggest thing that's hit everybody so hard. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, irrespective of your race or your employment, this has hit everybody.
The main project I have going on at the moment is with a band called The Days Run. They're like a kind of indie alt kind of rock band. And we had like an EP planned to get recorded, to get pushed out. And outside of that, we had like a few festival gigs kind of that we wanted to plan to get on the horizon for around this summer. Basically, we were kind of touching on applying at places like Glastonbury. We had some responses, positive responses, and people that were interested in getting us on board. But unfortunately, hopefully next year.
So like literally just before lockdown happened, I was literally booked for like my first like gig as like a solo artist. It was literally just in town where I'm at uni in Falmouth. But it was like a student event where like a bunch of students put on a massive event, and it was like, so like they had DJs, they had other rappers that were gonna be there, and they were like, oh, do you want to do this? And I was like, hells yes, I cannot wait. Because every gig that I've done since being here has been in like small bands, because they wanted like pop music rather than just hip hop. And like when it comes to writing pop songs, I'm not the best at doing it by myself. So like I tend to like get people in that I know are good at that, and then we write stuff together. So like even since the beginning of this year, I've probably written 5 songs with like this, like my guitarist Candela. She's an absolute G. She's amazing at what she does. And like I don't think there's been a single song that we've written together that's been bad. But like even like, but before lockdown, like we were planning to do so much stuff together. Like we were gonna gig, we were gonna record loads of songs. Like we were ready for this entire year.
There's 2 main streams to my my artist. There's the original music side, so that's me songwriting and recording my own music and performing my own original music. And then separately from that, I have a residency at a hotel, and I perform at all of their events. That leads to things like weddings, christenings, that sort of thing, and at those events I will tend to perform like, covers and things like that. So the way that 2020 looked in January was packed with hotel events. They'd given me a brand new event called Jazz Sunday, which was literally all me singing all day. Amazing, on top of all the other events that we had planned. I started working with a new producer, and we were working one-on-one towards a project that was supposed to be released for my birthday in May. So we had just started getting into the sessions and had basically just started getting the ball rolling. I was just excited. I was like, yeah, 2020, this year is going to be everything. I had a trip to Barbados planned in at the end of July, and I had a trip to Paris planned. Both of them I had musical plans on as well. So that was how it was looking before COVID. And then it was like, dun, 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 this disease just ruined, shut the whole thing down.
The way I planned to just record music, because my first lockdown, it was, I wouldn't say dreadful, but I was like very moody, like, you know, very lazy on the first week, because it hits you when this is real, when COVID is real, innit? Like, people would think that it would just go away in the next 2 days like the other diseases that happened in the past. But this is something serious. People are actually losing their life, and it's like, it affected me in a way where, damn, like, I'm stuck in a bubble. Like, everyone is stuck in a bubble. Creatively, I took a positive note after like 2 weeks of lockdown, and I was like, grassroots, just like, make music, try and make songs on like within yourself. And I made so many tunes. And the fact is that I was part of a competition at Roundhouse, and I won out of 500 people. And I was supposed to be recording a professional song with them and going to networking gigs. Like I wanted to do gigs upon gigs this year. Like, my plan was just trying to basically, like, you know, try and reach the limit at this point. So like next year will be like, you know, a level up. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, just being in a studio and doing less of dancing and putting more on what I actually want to do. So that was my plan, basically, just banging out studios.
First lockdown, most people they didn't even know what they wanted to do. They were just like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna be in bed and Netflix the whole time. But my first lockdown, it was more like focus on myself, focus on my health, mentality, everything. So I actually used that time to exercise, which was very important, eat healthy, cook, and just do the things that I really like doing. So singing, dancing, I would dance with my mum all the time. So all them things that I used to do when I was younger, I had the time to do again, because obviously as you get older, you don't have as much time as you did. But then with that lockdown, the second lockdown, that gave me time to be like, you know what, let me just show these people what I'm capable of. So yeah,
it's definitely been it's been difficult to get through without having gigs, you know, losing all the kind of live work that we had. And you know, I think the main thing that's been really keeping me going are exercise and music. Funny enough, you know. So I spent a lot of my lockdown just practicing drums and focusing on projects. You know, I've got another project with my dad. He's actually a musician as well, and he's more of a jazz, you know, kind of musician, and he's got some equipment at home and stuff. So we've been putting a lot of time and effort into getting some of his tracks done, recorded, refined, getting ready to take it to the studio. So yeah, again, music really has been what's kept me going throughout lockdown. And yeah, you know, outside of that, it's there's definitely been moments where you know, you're like, damn, where is this gonna go? You know, basically it's worrying because a lot of music venues shut down. So definitely a lot of people lost a lot of work, and it's the future of the music industry is kind of up in the air at the moment, you know. But yeah, so there's definitely been moments where you kind of wonder, you know, like, should I maybe you know, try something else, basically. But I think everyone that, including myself, that has a deep enough passion for music will stick to it and, you know, try and pull through, basically. Hopefully we can just ride this out and find a way through.
A lot of people tend to write in teams or go to writing camps or have like a writing partner. I don't have a team. I don't have a manager. I've never really had anything like that. So the way that I've always made my music has been very producer based. Producers will get in touch with me. I like the music, I'll write to it, I'll release it. But again, like I said, at the start of the year when I started working with that producer, the intention was to start working with different writers and kind of get that ball rolling and try something that I hadn't quite done before. So my creative process throughout lockdown was then kind of on pause because I didn't want to keep writing on my own. I'd spent years writing on my own. I didn't want to keep doing that. I was really looking forward to writing with other people. And I will say this, I think a lot of people kind of fail to appreciate that artists are people too. The pandemic is happening to the artists as well. So I can't call someone up and say, oh, do you want to just do a few sessions with me over Zoom? I don't know what's going on in your house. I don't know if you've lost your day job. I don't know if you've lost a family member. There is a real issue going on in the country right now. So I didn't feel comfortable to reach out to people. And so I literally stopped creating. But what I did do is I got reintroduced to instruments. So when I was a kid, I always played piano. I started practicing my piano again. That was amazing. And a few years back, I actually started learning to play guitar and then I broke one of my fingers. Don't laugh at me. I was learning to play guitar and I broke my finger. And that stopped me from playing guitar for 6 years. And I picked up the guitar for the first time during lockdown. That's probably the best thing that's happened to me this year. My guitar ability just like grew so much during that time after not playing for all those years. And now that I'm back in the studio, now that like lockdown is over and everything, I'm back in the studio, all of my music is guitar heavy, all of it's guitar based, and my whole sound and the whole way that I envisioned my shows before Corona has completely changed now because everything I want to do is with my guitar.
Well, not gonna lie, initially, in like the first 2 or 3 weeks of lockdown, it sort of just felt like I was standing still and there was no kind of moving forward because it was something everyone wasn't used to and you didn't really know how to move forward. And just before lockdown, I was getting into session singing and being a session vocalist. And I was just like, how am I going to do this now? Like, we're in a lockdown. So I had to buy some equipment and just sort of figure out how to do what I want to do at home and still be able to work with other people. So it was sort of a thing of trying to adapt to this new way of living, trying to learn new skills in order to keep going, if that makes sense. So I was working with different musicians and just different people and recording at home and sending it to them, which is not the same because when you are in a session, you can bounce off of each other. It's a different sort of energy, it's a different atmosphere, but you just have to make do with what you could, really, yeah.
There's been points throughout all this, I think all of us have just felt a bit hopeless, haven't we? And if you start thinking too far in the future, it just drives you mad. You think, what's next summer going to look like? When can I do a gig again where there's an actual crowd? These kind of things. And there were a few times in the past 6 months or whatever, I just thought, oh, it's pointless. The music scene's going to die. I'm just going to have to get an office job and that'll be that. But you just have to sort of persevere with it and just take it day to day, I think. And because I've had other stuff going in my life as well, I'm still studying for my degree and stuff like that. So I've been sort of still trying to juggle quite a few things. So it's been a difficult time, but yeah, it's just changed things.
Change is inevitable in life. That is the one consistent thing that we all have to depend on. No good thing lasts forever. No bad thing lasts forever either. Change just keeps happening and happening. So for me, I just had to keep the faith that change is going to come, even though it sounds a bit cliche. I've had to just keep the faith that change is coming. This is a season that maybe for whatever reason the universe needed us all to just sit down and pay attention. I feel like this has been the year of exposure. There's been so much political unrest, so many things have come to light that we would never openly discuss before. And I just try to be grateful for that rather than bitter that I lost that job. Yes, I lost that job, but I regained a whole new love for my dream, for my career. I changed my direction, and I started getting really mindful as well. Started meditating and stuff. Started going to meditation classes on Zoom, which have like massively helped me as well. You know, just kind of trying to take care of my mind, my body, and literally just keep going. You know, one day at a time.
That was interesting, seeing how different people went through the lockdowns in various different ways. But what about music and education?
There was no way I was surviving the entirety of secondary school without music. I don't know. For me, school was like one of the worst places to be. I didn't really like it. Like, obviously, it was like it was a place where you saw your friends, and hung out with people that you wouldn't see at home. But for me, it was weird. I wouldn't say like I had a proper group of friends. Like, it would always just be a group of people that I knew that I would just chill with because I knew them. But like in music, I spent most of my lunch times and most of my break times in the music department. Any free time I had, I was in the music department. Like, by the end of it, my best friends at school were probably the music department. Like, even in sixth form, like I would literally stay after school and just be in the music department, like writing something or trying to figure out how to produce stuff on Logic, or playing the piano, or literally just talking to my music teachers, and trying to gauge what I can learn from them, like as an individual, as like an artist, or like just as somebody who loves music.
I am very lucky to be working in a top conservatoire, because the Royal College of Music I think it's the first in the UK and the second in Europe. And since the pandemic really hit us, it's been challenging because we had to move everything online. But from a personal point of view, I think the composers have been the one less affected, because we managed to survive remotely. It's been more challenging, for example, for performers, because a Zoom lesson or a Skype lesson playing the violin is not the same as playing in person. But what I've seen across the world was the need of music, the need of art. So especially in terms of being uplifting and nurturing the soul. That's why I think it's really essential that music it's taught in primary and secondary school, and it's not just seen as a side activity, but also as a main activity, which is important as well as the academic activities.
Oh wow, okay, so yeah, so for about 5-6 years I played flute classically. We went to school together, so our school had this program, music specialist program, so everyone had to, well, if you chose music specialist school, you had to learn an instrument, of course, but what I didn't know is that it had to be an orchestral instrument. so when I sat down with this teacher for the basic interview, what do you want to play, etc., and because I'd already been learning guitar, I was like, oh yeah, can I learn guitar and stuff? And she's like, oh, you have to learn like an orchestral instrument. And at the time, I didn't really listen to classical music, so I didn't have a knowledge of what orchestral instruments are, or what they involve. And she was the flute teacher, so this is how I chose flute. She had a flute on the table, and I was asking her basically, give me a rundown of what I can choose then, and so she was saying this and that, etc. But so then I asked her, what's that on the table? And she was like, oh, this is a flute, and it was shiny and looked cool, so I was like, I'll play that. And that was the next 6 years of my life. So the switch, to be honest, I think the reason I stuck to flute was because it was a gateway into music. And music is what I love and I'm passionate about. So that's what kind of pulled me in and gave me a general overall knowledge of what I'm in for, basically. But it wasn't the specific instrument that I really enjoyed. And it was actually a classmate, Griffin, who I met, who plays drums, that got me into starting to learn drums. He started teaching me bits and pieces. You know, we got quite close, and that's what made me realize, damn, this, like, the feeling was different. You know, I love this. You know, this is awesome, and that's what kind of pulled me across. You know, yeah.
It gives young people a place to go, like, with people who are like creative. Schools don't necessarily value that. They just want you to get good grades, get a job, and live under somebody else's rules. You get what I'm saying? Whereas these youth clubs, you can ask questions. There's people who are literally there to make sure that you can express yourself and do what you want, give you the tools. I think without these kind of places and things in place, there would be a lot more, like, even though there's still quite a lot of it, but there would be a lot more people like not knowing where to go in their lives, like lack of inspiration, lack of knowing what they want to do with themselves, you know?
I think art shapes culture, right? So I think throughout history, you've seen how artists, creatives are able to like tap into the unknown. They're able to tell stories in a really amazing way, and which influences all the different spheres of life. So if that was to die, I think a massive part of culture globally would kind of die and fade away, because storytelling is at the crux of being a human. So to empower the next generation of storytellers is fundamental to moving culture forward, to moving society forward, and allowing people to dream. And normally, you know, with the way that the education system is formatted, it kind of benefits a certain type of learning. It's not necessarily lent or bent towards the creative arts. It's more so how much information can a young person retain to then spur it out in an exam and hope for the best. Whereas I feel like creating different arenas for young people to be creative, to go and dance, to write a song, to act, to sing, to exercise that creative muscle that is just as important as being a mathematician or a doctor or a lawyer. All of those jobs are essential to society, but I truly believe that storytellers are also essential to society. People that can make us dream, people that can help us empathize with one another, people that can be the soundtracks to our lives. So I think if you lose that, you lose a central part of what being a human is. So it's so important for us as facilitators to keep creating the spaces for young people.
This year's been a struggle for everyone, but I think the most important thing is that us as creatives stick together. So here are some tips and suggestions that may help us build a brighter future.
I'd say just be clear on your vision. Because, you know, like, I always find it a bit weird when I hear people talk about the industry like it's one building that you have to apply for and hope to get into. It's not an internship, you know. Like, you've got your equipment set up here right now. If you record a song right now, you can upload it to a distribution service and you can have it on iTunes tomorrow. You're in the industry. Do you know what I mean? But be clear on what you want. If you want to get, you know, rich and famous fast, there's no cheat code unless you're going to do some gimmicks and hope for the best, you know. Do you want to be, you know, Beyonce or Rihanna, like megastar level artist, and then, okay, I can't help you with that because I'm not there. I don't know. But if you just want to be heard, if you just want to get your music out, just start. Just be clear, like have your vision clear. What does my audience look like? Am I playing in the Jazz Cafe or am I playing in the O2 Arena? Am I even in the UK? Where am I? What sound do I want? How do I want people to feel when they hear my name? You know, like I decided I want people to relax. I want people to feel chilled. I want people to feel good. I want them to relate with my feelings, you know? That massively helped me. Again, I stopped responding to the emails that were house music or dubstep or whatever, because I'm like, that's not the mood. That's not the mood that I want people to feel when they hear my name, you know? So just be clear on your vision, be clear on who you are, and just get started. You can download an instrumental online for free and write to it if you don't have any. If you can play an instrument, grab your instrument. If you've got a friend who can do that for you, then grab them, you know? Even, I'm rambling, I'm sorry, I'm a rambler, but I've got a friend who was in prison, and sang down the phone, got his sister to record him singing down the phone, yeah, and put that on a track. And do you know what? It's not on iTunes, yeah, but it was enough to show his dedication. It was enough to get him in the hands of the people he needed. So when he got home, he just got straight to work, you know. And I always remember this guy. He's doing bits now, but I always think back on this guy. There's no limitations. You just work with your resources, be resourceful, you know, and be clear on your vision.
My advice would be to never give up and just to keep going, because there will always be bumps on the road and obstacles, but that passion for what you do will always remain the same, and just not to let it die out, because I know right now things are difficult and everyone's going through it, but just don't stop. Just keep doing what you're doing.
I'm gonna keep it simple. Just do it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. Everyone's different, so don't be perfect. Don't try and write a whole script or anything. Just make sure that you research. You have what you want to do, your content, and just be you. So just do it. I feel like there's no better time to do it now, because obviously everyone's just at home. Like, everyone's bored anyway. So if you are silly, you're a comedian, or you have the talent, you can cook, just do it. Like, you know, everyone's going to be appreciative of what you bring to the world. So yeah,
you can be the change that you want to see. You know, there's you having these thoughts like, oh, it's going to be so hard for me to do this, to do that. There's definitely other people who are feeling that same way, and if you can be that person to show them, like, no, it's not over, come with new ideas, new things to do, like the live streaming, other people join that bandwagon and you can make it your own thing, you know, like new things to do because of this. Because think about it, how many things would have like had to happen for new things to happen? I hope I said that correctly. Did you get me? You got me?
Just keep playing for a start. If you're a musician, even if it's just on your own, doesn't need to be with anyone else, just keep playing. Just play songs you love, just play around with stuff, have fun with it, and then a lot of the time if you do that, stuff starts to come from there and you get more creative ideas off that. And also, don't worry about the future too much, because I think that's a problem we're all having, is no one really knows what our lives are going to look like in 4, 5, 6 months time. So honestly, as annoying as it is, I don't think it's worth worrying about that sort of thing at the moment. I'd say just do what you can now. Really use social media, like you say, stuff like live streams, you know, socially distanced gigs if there are any. Try and do 1 or 2, but it's not a priority at all. But just do what you can, even if it's the smallest thing. It's still better than nothing, I'd say.
I think what I did during this time as well was like just make the most of finding out what you like, what you're comfortable with, what kind of boundaries you can push further out, like what makes you you when it comes to music. Like I've learned so much about myself over this past like lockdown and over this past like pandemic period. Like it's made me realize just how hardworking I actually am. Like I never used to think I was hardworking before. I used to think I was like quite lazy in what I did. And like I never like really took care into it. But like over this past year, it's been mad to see like just how far I'm willing to go to make sure I'm still doing this. So like if there's anything that you learn from this entire period, it's like just how much you're willing to stick to it. Like just prove to yourself that you're willing to go the extra mile just to continue doing it. Like it doesn't even have to be become the greatest of all time, but become the greatest to yourself, you know?
The music industry is not dying. It has just been temporarily halted, but the live element, the live performance. But for example, if you're an artist that create music, this didn't stop you from creating, and that's why you had tons of releases on, you know, on all the streaming platforms, and also all the releases that have been happening and on Amazon Prime, on Netflix, and all the video platforms are still going on. So they need musicians to record, they need a composer to create bespoke soundtracks. And regardless of the pandemic, if you want to take this path, this career, it's going to be challenging. It was challenging before, and the pandemic hasn't changed anything. It just slowed down things for 1 year or so. But eventually things will restart, and also the pandemic allowed us to, to think outside the box. If you want to go for it, but you really need to believe in yourself, and you need to, be resilient, persistent, because there are gonna be lots of bumps in your way. So you just need to keep going and train yourself at the best level that you can, and throw yourself into the net, meaning do as many things as possible, connect as much as possible with other creatives, because you never know when the right opportunity will arise.
If something's been on your heart, irrespective of the environment you find yourselves in, there's going to be opposition, right? And I think for our generation, and probably in our time, this is the biggest thing that's hit everybody so hard. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, irrespective of your race or your employment. This has hit everybody, and it's hit the creative industry really hard, because it's hard to dream when there's so much fog. But I would encourage anyone that wants to tell stories to, this season needs stories spoken about it as well. Do you know what I mean? We can't just completely ignore the hard times for humanity and for society and for us as a culture. We need people that are going to help pour hope into this situation. So if all the people that are able to shine lights decide not to shine their light, then the room becomes way darker. In the darkest rooms, you need the brightest lights. So anyone that has a shred of intuition or imagination or creative juice, please do not stop, because we need it now more than ever. And also I'd say this time will pass. Humanity's gone through a lot, and we'll go through this. And on the other side, we won't get back to where we were, but we will build a new future.